Hi again. It's good to be with you. This time we'll look at one of the great automobile companies that operated during 3 centuries. There are lots of stories of how Ransom E. Olds began steam engine building in his dad's engine plant, how he built a 3-wheel steam car back in 1887, and how Olds transitioned to a gasoline-powered car in 1896. Then came the Olds Motor Vehicle Company in 1897. Within 3 years, it would become a leader in the automotive industry. In 1903, there would be a buyout by entrepreneur Samuel Smith and a move to Detroit. But the Detroit factory soon burned to the ground and they moved back to Lansing. Olds lost control of the company in that buyout and was fired by the new owners in 1904 over disagreements. Some say he started the new Rio Motor Car Company in 1905 using his initials in spite. It's a tangled tale. That's the short version about the politics and early company days. This video is really about the cars and trucks that Olds factories built. Let's rewind to the first Olds production model and learn how it started. In 1901, the Ransom E. Olds factory turned out 635 cars, making it the first high-volume gasoline-powered automobile manufacturer. The car that he's best known for is the Curved Dash Olds. It had a production run from 1901 to 1903. 425 cars were built that year, 2,500 in 1902, and over 19,000 Curved Dash models were built from 1901 to 1907. The runabout was a 2-seater and sold for $650. A successful start. 1904 saw the Curved Dash Olds with a larger 1931cc engine and drum brakes. Next came the Model B with more improvements. An improved engine cooling system, reinforced rear end with modified leaf spring suspension. And then came the Model F in 1907 with even more improvements. Here's a quick snapshot of GM's William Durant before we get back to Olds. Billy Durant was born into a wealthy family. He became wealthy himself by starting a horse-drawn carriage company, but he could see the future in automobiles. Durant was already an investor and general manager of Buick and bought the company in 1908. That same year, Durant bought Oldsmobile, and while he was on a buying spree, he also bought Cadillac and Oakland the next year. That was the start of General Motors. But let's get back to Oldsmobile. General Motors was about to turn Oldsmobile into a luxury brand. And so, in 1910, the Olds Limited Touring Car came into production. It was Olds' top of the line for that year. 1911 brought a bigger engine displacement of 706 cubic inches. More than 800 of the Limiteds were rolled out between 1910 and 1912. By 1915, the Brasser era was coming to an end. In 1926, Olds became the first company to offer chrome plating on its radiator surrounds and bumpers. The 1930s brought more innovation in styling. For 1937, Oldsmobile was a pioneer in introducing a 4-speed semi-automatic transmission called the automatic safety transmission, although it wasn't completely automatic. Olds introduced the world's first fully automatic transmission in 1940. They called it the 4-speed Hydromatic. World War II was about to break out in 1939. In 1942, the Americans would join the fight after the Pearl Harbor attack. The last pre-war Oldsmobile rolled off the assembly line on February 5, 1942. During World War II, Oldsmobile joined the war effort, making large caliber guns and shells, among other things. At war's end, production resumed in 1945 with a modestly modified 1942 model for 1946. Little changed for the next couple of years, but in 1949, big changes were to come for Oldsmobile. The late 1940s and early 50s were the futuristic era of Buck Rogers and his space rockets. And so, hopping on the bandwagon of that era, Olds came out with their overhead valve V8 rocket. It was designed by Buick, used by Olds. This replaced the flathead straight 8 and offered a lot more horsepower. About that time, the hot rod era was ramping up as teenagers hopped up lightweight old cars with big engines. A favorite was the Olds Rocket V8. In the early 1950s, Olds cars were considered the fastest. Over the next couple of decades, buyers not only wanted performance but also comfort and styling. Olds was able to meet that challenge with a series of streamlined automobiles. By 1957, interiors were full luxury. As the late 50s came along, Oldsmobile was able to resist the trend of exaggerated tail fins, with only modest quarter-panel fins on its 1958 and 59 models. By 1960, the fins were gone. In 1961, Olds brought back the Starfire badge from the mid-50s with a new top-of-the-line luxury sports car. The 61 Starfire series was only available in a convertible model. By 1962, Oldsmobile dealerships were offering both a convertible and a hardtop Starfire. These were basically a dressed-up design built on an Olds 88 platform. The Starfire badge would continue until the introduction of the first front-wheel drive Toronado in 1966 to 1992. Oldsmobile had been working on front-wheel drive since 1958. The Toronado was the first U.S.-produced front-wheel drive car since the demise of Cord in 1937. At the same time as Starfire was reintroduced in 1961, Oldsmobile brought out the Cutlass. It was a top trim level of Oldsmobile's compact F85 line. In 1978, the Cutlass was downsized to a new version with a shorter wheelbase. Back in '64, Olds decided to get into the muscle car business with the introduction of the 442. It was made between the years 1964 and 1967. What a car it was. 442 refers to 4-barrel carburetor, 4-speed manual transmission, and dual exhausts. It was essentially a beefed-up Cutlass. From 1965 to 1967, it offered two hefty engines, a 330 cubic inch and a 400 cubic inch. The 400 became a separate model from 1968 through 1971. It was capable of doing 0 to 60 in 7 seconds. Back in '68, that was quite fast, even though it may not sound like much today. The 400 engine turned out 345 horsepower. Due to rising insurance rates and higher gas prices, Oldsmobile's muscle car era was in decline by 1972, and by 1973 had dropped its 4-speed manual transmission. Through the 70s and 80s, Olds would still be making full-size luxury cars. These were cars that provided both style and comfort. But they were about to become dinosaurs. The times, they were a-changin', and so were car buyers. They wanted smaller, more efficient automobiles. Olds manufactured the new Calais from 1985 to 1991. In 1992, Olds brought out the Achieva. It was a front-wheel drive compact sedan and coupe. It was available with 4- or 6-cylinder engines. The Alero was introduced in 1998 as a 1999 model to replace the entry-level Achieva and Cutlass. By 2002, with declining sales, the handwriting was on the wall for Oldsmobile's long future. Things were moving quickly in the automotive world, and the bottom line was profit. On Thursday, April 29, 2004, the last Oldsmobile ever built, a 2004 Alero GLS, rolled off the assembly line in Lansing, bringing to an end America's then oldest automotive brand. So many models were brought out over more than a century, I can't show them all. I hope you've enjoyed this look at the Oldsmobile story through the years. Thanks for viewing, and we'll see you again.